Chapter 6. Crystal. As the midday sun sat high in the sky, casting shadows through the leaves above her head, Valyn let an arrow loose. The head sank into its target, a plump wild turkey that had been picking at the ground, unaware of the woman across the glade. It would make a fine dinner, one that she hoped a certain elf would enjoy if she were to visit, as had become their routine. 3 more days had passed since their outing to the lakeside, and everything had been as it was. Valyn was beginning to feel a regular joy in her days that she had not known since childhood. It was becoming less and less alarming, and instead, she welcomed it with arms that spread ever wider. The night sky girl had a liveliness that warmed every part of Valyn, and she had the sense to know when warmth was better than the cold. Valyn scooped the turkey up by the feet after yanking the arrow from its chest and hoisted it over her shoulder. Her feet were light and swift as she made her way back to her home, an eagerness tightening in her chest the closer she got. Perhaps Asta would be there waiting for her, and the idea made her giddy. She felt like a tree reaching towards the sun. It was a lovely thought, and she let it carry her forward. And there she was, glowing skin and flowing hair and a timid smile that could stop Valyn's heart. Turkey in hand, Valyn made her way over, placing it on the ground outside the front door. Asta's eyes flicked to the bird for a moment, but she quickly drew her focus to the woman in front of her, a bald hand pressed against her chest. "I cannot stay long," Asta said. Valyn frowned in response, but opened the door in invitation anyway. The other elf smiled. "Very well, just a quick visit." They both entered and sat at the table in their usual spots, Valyn realizing that even alone, she never sat in the second chair anymore. It was Asta's now. Asta reached her clenched hand out and unfurled her fingers to show Valyn what she had been hiding. It was the leather cord from Valyn's dagger, wrapped around a piece of clear, glass-like crystal with the flames of the fireplace dancing on its surface. The crystal was small, but so clear and luminous it seemed completely ill-suited to the rough leather that was tied around it. Valyn wondered if that was what she looked like with Asta. "For you," Asta said, placing it on the table in front of her. "I cannot take this," Valyn retorted as she pushed the item closer to Asta and away from herself. "It wouldn't suit me." Asta laughed, bright and kind. "I think it suits you quite well. I picked it precisely because it reminds me of you." Valyn raised an eyebrow. "I mean it, truly." She pushed it back to Valyn, who pushed it right back. "Is it so impossible to believe a lovely stone can belong to a lovely woman?" Valyn had no response for that, as her mind could not form a coherent thought. Asta sighed, and then her face lit up as though she had seen some great truth. Before Valyn could begin to decipher it, Asta rose from her chair and went to Valyn's side, pointing at the dagger on her thigh. Valyn's brow only furrowed deeper, but she removed the dagger regardless and placed it upon the table. Asta took the crystal and used the cord to tie it to the top of the dagger's handle. When she handed it back to Valyn, she spoke in a whispered voice that was laced with a sadness that made Valyn ache. "Keep it with Reyna. I have a feeling she would have liked it." She nodded, placing the dagger back on her thigh and running her thumb over the crystal. It was smooth and cool, and she wondered if Asta's skin would feel the same under her fingers. Asta smiled in approval, wrapping her hands around the strap of her bag as she eyed the door. "I really must go. I'm sorry I cannot stay longer today." "Must you?" Valyn asked, the words so pleading she wished they had never slipped out. She tried to recover, her next words flowing like a raging river. "I have the turkey outside. You could have some if you wanted." Asta's face became strained, eyes never leaving the door. "I am sorry, Valyn, truly. I appreciate your generosity, but the smell of burning meat turns my stomach, I'm afraid." Valyn did not want to push her, but words flew from her tongue regardless. "I will not cook it with you here. I can wait." She finally turned to face Valyn, her eyes pained. "Valyn, sweet Valyn, you are gracious and I thank you for it, but the troop needs me." Valyn would not beg a third time. and so she rose from her seat and guided Asta to the door, flexing her fingers at her side to keep from touching the small of Asta's back. Was the feeling of wanting someone as maddening for everyone as it was for Valyn? As the door opened, Asta took a few steps out, then turned around to give Valyn a small wave. Valyn waved back, watching her go until her body disappeared into the forest. Afterwards, as she was plucking the turkey of its bark-colored feathers, she racked her brain to think of the last time anyone had compared her to anything lovely. The next day, the two elves sat together in Valyn's home as they took turns helping themselves to another loaf of bread baked by Asta. It had become a frequent ritual that Valyn warmed to quickly, for who was she to turn down fresh food? "I have been wanting to ask," Asta began, spreading soft goat cheese onto a bit of bread and popping it in her mouth. "Your tattoo, what does it mean?" Valyn almost sighed in relief at the question, for if Asta brought up anything with a preface of any kind, it was most likely a sensitive topic. But this was one Valyn was proud of. She had done it on herself when she was 15 years old, staring at her reflection in the lake and hoping it would make her look more like her mother. The simple black line ran from below her bottom lip down to her chin, the same as all the women in her family, or at least that was what her mother had told her. "My people have tattoos for many reasons, and this is one my mother had, and her mother before her. It is meant to be the mark of a woman, one I had hoped my mother would give me. Regardless, I have it now, and I treasure it greatly." Asta nodded along, listening intently until Valyn was finished. Deep in thought, she took another bite of bread, swallowing after a moment, and then leaning her chin in her hand, tilting her head to stare at Valyn. "It really is beautiful, I think. The sentiment and the look of it. I can see why you treasure it." Valyn nearly choked on her own bread, though it was not the first time Asta's words had caught her off guard, and it would not be the last. "Thank you," was all she said. Asta brushed her hands off, peeking at the sliver of light from under the front door as she let out an exhausted sigh. "It'll be getting dark soon, which means I shall have to leave you for now." Valyn could hardly complain. They had spent almost the entire day together, walking in the forest with light conversation while Asta pointed out different birds here and there. All had been calm and pleasant, and sharing bread was a perfect end to Valyn's day. Asta stood, dragging her feet all the while as she neared the door, pouting. Even as she turned the handle, she did it slowly to draw out the time it took. Valyn almost laughed, as if she hadn't thought of doing those same things any time Asta had to leave. Before she stepped out, Asta turned and said, "Tomorrow, let's go to the lake again." Valyn smiled and nodded. "Very well, Asta." The girl froze, wide eyes round as the moon. "Goodness," she breathed. "You've never smiled like that before." She was right. She hadn't. Valyn could not remember the last time she had smiled with no thought to hold it back, with no hesitation at all. "And the first time you've said my name," Asta teased. Was that true? Valyn thought back to all the days they shared, and knew she was right again. How utterly foolish could one lonely woman be? "Say it again," Asta said, her pale gaze warm in the setting sun. "Asta," Valyn replied, and a shy feeling enveloped her chest. The two stared at each other for what felt like hours, neither of them moving, as Valyn felt like lightning would strike her the moment she did. Asta was the first to break the hold on them both as she cleared her throat. "Well," she said, turning to leave, "until tomorrow." That night, Valyn slept with the newest wildflowers Asta had gathered upon her pillow, their sweetness a substitute that could only tide her over for so long.